I'll show you the life of the mind. And here's where it went. Oh, right. Dave loves to say that. It's from Barton Fink, one of my favorite Coen Brothers films. Turturro's really great in that one, but he's great in everything. I wonder why he's not a bigger star. Or maybe that's part of what makes him great. Maybe he seems so great to me because he always picks the most interesting roles, and those roles are never in big-budget mainstream films because that's not even what most of the public wants. Although, I heard he was in one of those Transformer movies that really sucked, but I never saw it. It's like that conversation I was having with Mark about how it's not even possible to get a big budget behind an interesting story because interesting stories, by definition, alienate enough of the audience to make it hard to get your investment money back. At least, I think that's the theory we finally agreed on. Sometimes when I talk to Mark for a while, we wind up covering the issue from so many different angles that it's not clear what we've established by the time we run out of daylight. But I love that about Mark. It's one of the things that makes him a great guy. I'm really happy for him that he married such a wonderful woman. Not that it's any of my business, but they seem good together. She seems good for him, and I want him to be happy. I guess I want everyone to be happy. Or wait, do I? Is that even possible? I'm not even totally sure how much I believe in happiness. I mean, as soon as you achieve anything that makes you happy, you immediately have to set off for something else. It's never a maintainable state. I think that's one of the reasons Leslie and I haven't gotten married. We're not quite sure we know what it means. Does it mean deciding that we could never be happier somewhere else or with someone else? Would it make us complacent? Would we just get fat and stop fucking? Or does that happen anyway? But I guess that's all bullshit. I mean, life is what you make it, so marriage is probably whatever you make it to. In the big scheme of things, it probably doesn't make any difference whether we get married or not, so I don't know why we make such a big deal out of it. I guess it's just a symbolic act, you know? I imagine we'll get around to it if we ever figure out exactly what we want it to symbolize. For now, I'm just happy that we both seem to want the same things out of life. We both like living in Paris. We both want to be artists, you know. We both love watching and making films. Come to think of it, we both really love the Coen Brothers. That's probably why she gave me this title. But, you know, weirdly enough, we've been trying to make a mutual list of our all-time favorite films, and so far there just isn't that much Coen Brothers stuff on it. It's like we appreciate the cumulative effect of their body of work, but it's hard to pin down which one exactly stands out as the classic. Like Grateful Dead albums. For me, it's between Barton Fink and The Big Lebowski. But I think Leslie's withholding judgment until she sees Fargo. She never gets around to seeing it because I've seen it a few times, and I'm never in the mood to watch it again. I mean, it was okay. It was probably pretty good. But it's hard to get all excited about rewatching something when there are all kinds of cool things you haven't seen yet. And that one seems to come around a fair amount on its own. I'm always running into it in hotel rooms or on airplanes. Leslie just keeps seeming to miss it for some reason, or more likely, for no reason. I don't really buy into all that everything happens for a reason crap. I think that's just a fairy tale we tell ourselves. I think humans are just obsessed with reason, so we think we see it everywhere even when we don't. It's like Freud thinking that everything we see and do is about wanting to fuck our mothers. Sounds to me more like Freud just wanted to fuck his own mother, so he saw that everywhere he looked. Maybe for someone else, everything we see and do is about water. Maybe they grew up in a dry place where water was the ultimate symbol of power, control, and survival. So they're obsessed with water, and they see water in everything. And when people see reason everywhere, I can't help thinking that they're only seeing what they're actively looking for. I wonder what I'm looking for. I like to think that I'm looking for truth and trying to see the truth in everything, but I don't know how much truth I really see. I guess by my own logic, if what people see is what they're looking for, then I must be looking for bullshit, because I see bullshit everywhere. All the shit people own, the shit they wear, the priorities on which they base their lives, all the silly little answers they always try to slap onto the great big beautiful questions. Like these old ladies I just saw learning Tai Chi in the park. I can't believe there's something they haven't learned from 65 years of life experience that they're suddenly going to learn by putting on a black nightshirt and standing on one foot next to a pond all afternoon. But that's exactly what I mean about seeing what you're looking for. See, if I were a more positive person, I'm sure that I'd see that whole situation in a much less derogatory light. It isn't like there's any logical reason that I have to be an asshole about old ladies checking out Tai Chi. It might even be the coolest thing going on in the whole city right now. Maybe they're expanding their minds in some beautiful way that I don't know about because I'm a willfully closed-minded, judgmental dick who sits around in the park looking for ways to criticize the behavior of others. Why am I even like that? I don't think it has anything to do with my mother, at least not with Freddie anyway. It probably just has to do with my insecurity about the value of what I do with my own time. All the stupid shit that I own and eat and wear. And to be fair, I'm not always like that. Even just now, I kind of caught myself being like that and reeled it back in. I like to think that I reel that shit in more than I let it go. Not that I want to be dishonest or inauthentic, but I don't think those inclinations to bag on other people are really the most honest reflection of myself. I like to think of myself as a basically nice person who only gets that way sometimes when I'm feeling fragile or scared. But wait, that must be what everyone thinks of themselves deep down. And that doesn't mean that nobody's an asshole. So how does anyone even know if they're the bad guy? I hope there's some value just in asking ourselves, like that old saying that only a sane person wonders if they're crazy. I really do hope that's true, because I wonder if I'm crazy all the time. Some of the things that seem obvious to me are so far afield from the things that are commonly accepted as true that I wind up vacillating between thinking I'm ahead of my time and feeling so guilty for being that arrogant that I start thinking I'm probably a nutcase instead. An apologetic nutcase harboring secret narcissism under his trench coat. Or the other way around. But I also suspect that's another thing that is more widespread than it seems. I'll bet most people go back and forth apologizing all the time for their little uniquenesses while silently still believing that they're right about everything. I saw that cool video recently, I wish I could remember where I saw it, by that poet, or was it a comedian, who was saying that nobody ever truly believes that they're wrong at the actual time when they're wrong. Her theory was that we can learn in retrospect that we were wrong, acknowledge that we have been wrong, but that we can't actually operate under the assumption that we are currently wrong. And that makes a lot of sense to me. I've done a lot of things that I should have known at the time were wrong, but at the exact instant that I was doing them, I was probably making up a little narrative in my head about a way that they could be considered not really wrong. At least, that's an interesting thing to think about. That's probably why arguments happen, because whoever's wrong can't see it at the time. I argue with people way too much, and I never consciously think during the argument, Jason, you're doing that thing you do. Stop it. Or actually, I do think that, but I simultaneously think up some reason that this particular incident is somehow an exception to a larger trend that we've all been monitoring. And it's really funny to think about that, because looking at it that way, I think I just finally understood something Leslie's always trying to explain to me whenever we argue. But it never makes sense to me at the time, in the heat of the moment. I think that's one of the biggest problems Leslie and I have. We have totally different fighting styles. It's like sumo wrestling versus mixed martial arts. I just keep trying to push her over while she just keeps changing the subject. We usually don't get anything communicated until later, when one of us realizes alone what the other one must have been trying to say before. Weird. Am I just realizing that now as I think about it, or have I crossed the line from thinking something through on paper into presenting something I've already thought about before? Must be a little of both, I guess. Like I was thinking down an unnavigated stream and then it joins back up with a well-known main river? Or is that called a tributary? Are those the ones that feed in or the ones that derivate from? I should learn more about that kind of thing. Is derivate even a word? I really need to round out my education a little better. What the hell got me started off on all that shit anyway? Oh yeah, I'll show you the life of the mind.